Hello and welcome to the SMEFocus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. I'm your host this week to highlight aspects of the UK manufacturing scene and in particular SMEs. My guest today is Katia Douglas, someone I've spent a lot of time standing near on exhibition stands as she's a fellow member of the Connex Portal Collaborative Network. But today Katia is here to talk about her role with intellectual property company Pure Ideas. Hi Katia, welcome to SMEFocus.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're more than well. You're the one giving up the time to tell us interesting things. I'm just here pressing the buttons and doing a so-so job at that. So thank you for coming on.
No problem.
Across the shows that I've recorded more recently and the ones I've watched back that Chris did the first couple of hundred episodes of, I'm quite often amused how often people, the guests, have found their success doing something totally different to what they studied or planned. And I know you started out doing a business or degree but didn't pursue the legal route, so can we kick off there? Can you tell us more what brought about the change? Where and why did you get to where we are today?
Absolutely, you're right. So many people don't follow the route that they originally did, and it was just one of those things, to be honest with you. An exciting opportunity, a graduate opportunity came up, funnily enough, for a cultural awareness and language training company. So I worked for them for a number of years, and then I've worked in a variety of different sectors, it has to be said. Probably most relevant to our conversations around SMEs today would be I worked for a number of years for an injection molding company, a UK-based manufacturer that did lids and caps and closures and things like that. So I'm very well aware of some of the challenges that the manufacturing SME in the UK faces these days. And then later in my career, I ran my own recruitment business, so completely different sector again, and did that for a number of years. But as a small business owner, really gained an appreciation of the challenges that a small business owner faces, because you've got to be all things to all men and women. You have to have all the plates spinning at the same time, and that can be challenging in itself. So I think that has given me a real appreciation, Mark, to be honest, of the sort of issues that some of our SME client base face. And I finally came full circle back to work in a very niche area of law. I hasten to add, I'm not an attorney and I'm not a lawyer, but I do work in intellectual property.
Okay. Sounds I think hopefully the viewers can see the reason you're on today. So not only are you talking about a service provided to SMEs, but you've lived the life, and that makes us very strange people. So I think it's really interesting that you've lived the life and you know what SMEs go through and everything.
Yeah, we're a strange old bunch, aren't we?
So I'm glad you said it as well. I started to think, oh, I hope I haven't offended you, but yes, we are. It makes us what we are. So Pure Ideas advises businesses on intellectual property, as you said, but can you explain what this is and maybe give some examples of the type of advice that they offer?
Of course, yes. So yes, it's intellectual property. Sometimes people get a bit confused about what that is. It's nothing to do with buying and selling properties, but we advise clients on protecting their ideas, innovations, or just their brand identity. And also how to stop copycats or infringers, as they're known, and in some cases helping our clients where they're being accused of infringing on somebody else's rights. So quite a broad range of things. Typically, people listening will probably identify the word patent or trademark and understand what those are, or at least have some appreciation of what they are. So we do patents that protect ideas and innovations, trademarks that protect brand identity, logos, company names, that sort of thing, design registrations, so how something looks, and then licensing agreements and more wide-based strategic intellectual property advice, really. So in a nutshell, they're the kinds of services that we provide.
Okay. So on Dragon's Den, when questions are also asked to the inventors about their trademarks and protection, do you nod and agree with what the dragons are saying, or do you cringe at what they're saying?
Not at all. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned Dragon's Den, because I was going to mention it as well as part of some of the stuff that we're talking about today, in terms of how applicable, intellectual property is to the SME, I would say it's very applicable. It's an asset in your business, and that is why you hear the dragons on Dragon's Den saying, have you got a patent? Because they're interested from an investment point of view. It increases the value in your business if you have things like intellectual property. So very important part of your strategy is to think about your intellectual property in your business. You will have something, even if it's just the company name, even if you don't have a patent, and it's worth investigating. Okay.
So you provided a beautiful segue to SMEs. So what business sectors do you work with and across, and how applicable are they to SMEs?
Okay, so we work in terms of patent advice. Our patent attorneys are experienced and have a background in things like engineering, manufacturing, medical devices, computer implemented inventions. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? And also green technology. So the physical sciences is where Pure Ideas patent attorneys have their skill set. And if you imagine somebody's invented something in that sector, in the engineering sector, you need an attorney who can turn that idea into a patent. So that's why they need to have that background in that technology or those sorts of technologies to understand and write the best patents possible. So that's where our patent attorneys sit. In terms of trademarks, it's a much broader, we can cover any kind of sector, because obviously you can trademark names and logos and all sorts of other things, colours like the Cadbury purple. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an engineering or manufacturing background for trademarks, but that's the kind of sectors that we cover, which obviously are very relevant to a lot of the listeners for an SME podcast like this.
Okay, and I'm guessing, as you say, the team within Pure Ideas have got to have a decent understanding of the engineering or the computing or something behind something to know which features are the protectable features and where the clever source is. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Where the novel idea has come from. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any general topics of advice that you can offer to SMEs about intellectual property, or first places you'd point them to go to in their thoughts about intellectual property?
I mean, I think it's always, my advice would be get advice early. Don't leave it to chance. Even if you just inform yourself and don't necessarily take any actions immediately, finding out, the costs that are involved if you've got something and you're not quite ready yet, just knowing is better than not knowing. I've lost count of the number of times that sadly, particularly in things like trademarks, where somebody's called themselves something wonderful and then they haven't registered it as a trademark, and then down the line somebody else is using something for a very similar activity, which is called, is known as passing off. And then they have all the difficulties. If that person has registered that trademark, then they're going to start saying, well, you can't use the trademark, and it then gets quite expensive to either unpick it and get proof that you were doing it first, or you have to completely rebrand, and that can be expensive in itself. So getting that early advice and making sure you know where you stand is what I would recommend to anybody.
Okay. And does, for example, the Pure Ideas website have some sort of starting information to sort of to help people get their mind around what the issues are, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. We've got information on the website. There are general articles that talk about all sorts of different things around the topic of intellectual property. We also have our own podcast series. There are a number of podcasts on there that talk about the basics of trademarks, the basics of patents, the kinds of things to think about. So anybody listening is very welcome to listen to those. But we also offer free initial free consultations with potential clients so that they can find out more information without feeling that they're going to get stung with a bill for that initial consultation.
Okay, that sounds good, and particularly the podcast, because I'm sure if you're starting to think about something, it's easier to do listening to a human being rather than being confronted by lots of pages of words. I think there must be a lot of fear in people's minds of, oh, do I really want to go and read about this stuff? So the podcast sounds interesting.
We find a lot of people.
You'd already explained. Sorry. After you.
I was just going to say we find a lot of people have different ways of learning. So we sometimes it's the podcasts they like, sometimes they like reading articles. We do try to pitch the articles at a level that anybody could understand. So not sort of very highbrow language or anything like that, because it's not necessary. We can get the points across without being too technical.
Okay, great. So you were quick to point out earlier on that you're not a patent attorney or IP lawyer or whatever the correct term is. You're a commercial director for the business. So can you tell us a little bit about your role and maybe your dealings with SMEs and how they come about the process?
Absolutely, yes, not a problem. So yes, I can't give IP advice. I do get asked quite often and have to say, unfortunately, that's not my area of expertise. Yeah. But as commercial director, my role involves I've got the ownership of the relationships with both our existing clients and any prospective clients that come into us. So it's developing those relationships, listening to what those SMEs are saying, what are their pressure points, because sometimes by listening you identify there's a particular trend or a problem that's out there at the moment, and there might be something that we can do to adapt to that to help those clients in that particular aspect. Also, from our point of view, it's spotting risks. You know, if there's something that's changing in the IP field in terms of rules and regulations that might have a knock-on effect on clients, it's making sure that our team are informing people, you know, of those changes before they occur. And then making sure that we target our marketing and PR appropriately to the audience that's listening. I mentioned not using too much legalese and highbrow language. We try to pitch our sort of language as a brand. We try to make it very amenable to the everyday man on the street or woman on the street so that they can understand what we're saying. So that's a really important part of our brand. And I'm, as a lay person who's not an intellectual property lawyer, when they write the articles, I'm reading them from the point of view of somebody who is not an intellectual property lawyer. So hopefully what we're putting out there is understandable and easy to read. And then I also have a foot in the sort of day-to-day overseeing of the day-to-day operations of the business and liaising with our sort of HR and finance teams and that sort of thing. So quite a wide-ranging role, really, because we're not a huge organisation. So you tend to have skills in a number of different areas, I guess.
Yeah. Would you say there are any particular aspects or any particular aims that make Pure Ideas different to other companies that are working in this field?
I'd like to say that we're a little less, because our brand is that approachable, amenable, friendly a brand, that we try to be as down to earth as possible. I think that is a little bit different from a lot of the sort of larger IP firms out there, you know, who are great, very professional and everything else, but we do pitch ourselves as more approachable. We want to be that business partner, ally to our clients, not just a service provider. That's really important to us. So we like to manage our clients' expectations, remove that uncertainty that they might feel about certain things. And then the key one for us is fixed fees. So I'm quite sure you'll have heard of the term billable hours before. Lots of lawyers and intellectual property firms use it. And we have heard of it in certain circumstances where, you know, somebody's phoned for 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes of advice and then got a nice fat bill for that. Pure Ideas bills are fixed. So our client has certainty, they can budget accordingly because they've got some certainty around the costs that they will be facing for a particular process. It might be over a number of years, and so we will give, you know, staged fixed prices, but we don't do the billable hours, and that's something that a lot of our clients really welcome. Yeah,
that sounds good. Okay. I also wrap up the recording with the same question. So can I ask you what your plans and hopes are for the next 12 months, or let's say 2025? And that question can be targeted at yourself and your hopes, or business's hopes, or both, whatever you fancy sharing. So what do you hope to achieve in the next year?
I think in the next year for Pure Ideas, it's to continue with that journey with the UK SME marketplace. I think it's very dear to our hearts. We want the sector to flourish, and by helping them with the advice that we can give. So that's important. We do that and will do that through 2025 into 26 through a number of different means. We've the last 2 years gone to the Advanced Engineering Show at the NEC, so shows like that where there are those SMEs in that sector, through our links with the Connex community, which also go to Advanced Engineering, the Manufacturing Training Centre in Coventry. We do a lot of the sort of networking events there with them, and general networking events actually through the Connex community as well. So just getting to know people in the sector and building those relationships, I think that's what's important to us as a business. But a lot of our clients, we're actually owned by a larger organisation called the Mapped Group. And they own a number of law firms as well as intellectual property, us as intellectual property specialists. And a lot of our clients, if they then have legal issues, and let's face it, as an SME, you can have anything from you suddenly need to have some commercial property help or litigation help. If it's not in our wheelhouse, then the wider Mapped Group, we have links into all of those law firms, and we will have access to individuals who can give that sort of help and advice as well. So I think it's kind of nice for clients that are working with us that they don't have to then have a legal issue that we sort of say, well, I'm sorry, we can't help you with that. You need to go off and find the answer somewhere else. In the nicest possible way, we can actually refer that on. So I think those are sort of the hopes for 2025-6.
Okay, excellent. I'm wrapping up. Where can people find you, and how can they reach out to contact you?
People are welcome to contact me through my LinkedIn, Katia Douglas, or through the Pure Ideas website. If you go onto the Pure Ideas website, there is a contact page there and an email address and a phone number. So feel free to reach out in whichever format suits you best. We're always happy to help and advise.
Okay, brilliant. So I'll wrap up with the normal request to people that if they'd like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or particularly if you'd like to appear in a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth, Plus Automation. Cheers. Have fun.